It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome into an episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders. Alan, how are we doing?
Our guy, Brandon Rossai, just announced today going to be the PA address announcer for the Liverpool Real Betis match at Acrisure Stadium.
Ooh, that's big.
Another look. I don't want to say that if you participate in the Steelers Afternoon Drive, only good things will happen to your career going forward. But like
it's a launching pad.
We're one of one so far. That's all I'm going to say is that we're doing good things. Love to see Brandon on the up and up. That's July 26th at Acrisure Stadium. I actually might go. I'm not a big fan of either of those teams, but I don't know. It might be fun.
It's not like obviously like once in a lifetime opportunity, right? But it's like once in every few years opportunity to get to see a soccer game of that magnitude, like those types of teams, those caliber of teams playing at
I covered the women's national team there when they came after not the last World Cup, but the one before that, and Megan Klingenberg had been on the team. That was very cool. But yeah, I might go check it out.
And what we got to check out today are my wide receiver rankings. We teased this. Very curious as to why what separated my wide receiver 49 and my wide receiver 50.
Well, first of all, on this list. Is the absolute most sicko thing in the world to rank the top 50 of any position ever. But you've done it. You've done it here.
So my thought process with why I decided to do this. Can I zoom? Yeah, okay, because I'm gonna have to zoom in on this. My thought process was I ended up watching 56 receivers in total, at least one game.
So there are 6 guys that just didn't make the cut. There were
6 guys that did not make the cut. Yeah.
Wow.
And actually one of them was because he medically retired. And like I completely forgot that was a thing. Ryan O'Keefe at Boston College, who was really good at UCF, played one game this year and medically retired due to a neck injury. That was a really scary situation when he was carted off the field. So like in my opinion, good player, probably would have made my top 50 if he didn't medically retire. So I had to kind of switch up.
When your list is so long that people that have quit football would have been on it, that is a very good sign that your list is too long. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's so and again, like I was like, do I do a like top 10? Everybody does that. I saw my guys, I really enjoy Trevor Sikkema and Connor Rogers Stock Exchange podcast, and they did top 30s. So I was like, I got to go one step above this as well. I thought about it just being top 40, but I was like, if I'm gonna do 40, might as well do 50 because I've watched 56 guys. So did a top 50. But you were curious as to, and we can dive into the entirety of this, but I want to tell you, give you the skinny on the 49 and 50 guys here. So Tyrone Howe out of UL Monroe, 6'3", 204, 7 touchdowns last season. What I think is so interesting about he and my number 50, who is DeCorian Clark out of UTSA, both guys that are probably not going to get drafted, but like guys down this low, rarely are guys that are going to play as the outside as an X receiver. Both of those guys are that type of build. Again, both are 6'3". Clark is 215. Howe was listed as 204. But the reason I gave a slight edge to
have DeCorian Clark on our big board. So
do you? Okay. All right. Yeah. I mean, didn't produce until his junior year. He only played one game last year, but had 15 touchdowns across his junior and senior year.
I believe he must have got a combine invite. That's one of the
okay.
You get on our big board, you had to either go to the Shrine Bowl, go to the Senior Bowl, get a combine invite, or the Steelers somehow show some reported interest in you. So he must have got a combine invite.
The combine, I guess, probably also interested just because, like, again, didn't play. He played one game this last year, so probably some question there because, again, 15 touchdowns over the previous 2 seasons, 118 quarterback rating when targeted. The one issue that I had with him and why he was 50 and not 49, and I gave a slight edge to Howe, he's a little bit of a body catcher. Lets it come into his frame a little bit, whereas Howe gets the hands away from his frame, and also his issues transitioning to a runner. So like really good when he does make the catch, but then transitioning to a runner, he's not the most fluid player at his frame. So a little bit of a reasoning there for why my 49 and 50 wherever they were at. But yeah, Alan, anything else on the list that you wanted to discuss here? Tez Walker was one that I was getting roasted about, who came in as my number 21. People are also saying a little bit lower on Xavier Leggett. You already knew where I was at with Ricky Pearsall from when Derek was on here last week. So yeah, him as wide receiver 6 is I know is a hot take as well.
Yeah, I think you got Leggett a little bit underrated, and probably like I'm not high on Tez Walker either. I'll be perfectly honest. I mean, I think I have him right there with like Javon Baker and Jamari Thrash. So that's not crazy to me. You have Bub Means a lot higher than I think most people do. Pitt
man.
guy,
Yeah.
really interesting player. He's a really tough player. I think he can do a lot of things.
I'm not saying
he doesn't have high
I'm
upside, but I think he's a useful player.
Yeah, like I'm a sucker for like the height, weight, speed guys. Like that's kind of where I'm at, even despite the low production. And I'm not saying that he's going to turn into this at the next level, but like felt similarly.
Quarterback play though, like come on.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I was just saying is I feel similarly to a guy like Nico Collins when he was coming out of Michigan. No one knew what this guy was other than like he was a height, weight, speed guy because of the quarterback play at Michigan. And look how that's turned out. So I just feel like he was super underutilized at Pitt. And I feel like there's something to tap into there. He's almost ranked higher because of him being more of a question mark than just knowing that he's bad.
The two guys I see on the right side, I don't know what number that is. Looks like about
it starts at 32. So the right side.
The two guys I see after 32 that I think you have underrated are Jordan Whittington and Marcus Rosemy-Jackson. I really like both of those players.
Marcus Rosemy-Jackson, Steelers interest, by the way. So
both of them
Steelers come back to. Oh, really? Okay.
Yes. Yes. Whittington, I can't remember. Was that one of the was that a Zoom? No. Zach Azzani was at his pro day. Now, obviously, they have Worthy and Mitchell there too, but
okay.
I believe there was a report after that the Steelers were interested in him. I think both of those guys are good players. It's a deep receiver class, man. We talked about it yesterday. There's a lot of interesting guys. I don't know that there's a lot of sure things after the top 3, but there's another 30 that I think I'll do something that gets you to go, okay, I can work with that.
Keon Coleman as well was people were saying I had too low. And what's interesting is like
it's just that there's like a 2 in 10 chance that he's like Randy Moss, and there's like a 6 in 10 chance that he's N'Keal Harry, and like whatever the middle looks like, I don't know, but
yeah, he would have been like I told somebody if I was just doing like this last summer, probably went into 2023 as like one of my top 5 guys. I would have said if I had to like do a very early 2024 draft ranking at the position, but like the tape was just super disappointing to me. He didn't impress me this past year, and people were like, well, look what he was doing before Jordan Travis and after Jordan Travis. Yeah, and he didn't run well. And if you look at like the outliers there, someone sent this to me in a reply to my, for whatever reason, deleted wide receiver rankings post. But he's one of like 4 guys at his height and weight that ran as slow as he did, if he like ever. So I'm not betting on the outlier there.
Yeah, I kind of agree. But I think he'll maybe go higher than that, but I think it's a bet, right? It's not like that's a hard thing to rank when you're dealing with players that are of different sort of projectability. This is fun, and this is like, how many games do you think you watched to do this?
So the guys at the top, like Harrison, Odunze, Neighbors, A.D. Mitchell, Brian Thomas, Pearsall, McConkey, I didn't do 5. I think that was 3. Polk, though, was 5 as well. Troy Franklin was 5. So five games typically is what I try to do for the guys at the top. Everybody else pretty much at least 3 until you get to around the 35-ish. And those guys were just 1 or 2. So I don't know what that number is, but yeah, I've watched a lot of receivers and corners.
Yeah, you should do the corners. I mean, you've done all the work.
Yeah,
for sure. Well, I'm looking forward to it. That's insane, by the way. There's at least one guy on there that I've never heard of before in my life. I literally could not tell you a single thing.
The other one that's fun is Savion Williams from TCU, who I was like very interested in this year. I only got 2 games of him, but not great quarterback play going from a team that was just in like the national championship the previous season, took a drop off in production, obviously, this year. He's a fun player. I don't know that he's going. I mean, I think that he'll be a guy that either is like a 7th rounder or UDFA. He'll be in camp, and I'm curious to see if he can somehow latch on. But he's a fun player.
Who is MJ Wright? I'll be honest. I don't know who that. Like, I feel like I'm pretty. In fact, in our group text today, I was tweeting about Old Fashioned from Penn State, and someone replied to my tweet like, "He's a left tackle." I'm like, yeah. Don't you think at this point in the process that I have a pretty good idea what position most of these guys play? And I feel like I do. Certainly, everybody that might go in the first round, I do. I have to fully admit, I do not know who MJ Wright is.
Fordham University legend. MJ Wright. He's actually ranked on both. He's one of the rare guys towards the bottom here that is on the board of both Pro Football Network and PFF. 6 foot, 192. He's played inside and outside, so very curious to see, how he projects to the next level. Got into football very early, age of 5, started playing flag football. His dad played, so he kind of put a football in his hand. Like, he's a really cool story that I was reading about an interview with him that NFL Draft Diamonds did. But yeah, he's an interesting dude.
Jalen Coker from Holy Cross is the
I like him.
Is the Northeast FCS guy that I think a lot of people have their eye on. I think he's a very interesting prospect. I wouldn't mind the Steelers taking a flyer on in, say, the 6th round or something like that if they're looking to double dip a wide receiver.
Yeah. I will say, though, MJ Wright, I thought would run faster. He ran at 4.62 40. I know that was disappointing to people, especially not like, he's not super tall.
All the people that had high expectations for MJ Wright's 40 were very disappointed.
Yeah, I'm just, when you're not like the height weight guy and you run a 4.62, yeah. So I don't know that he's going to get drafted either, but there it is. 50 wide receivers. And I'm going to do the same with corners. We'll see. Can I squeeze? Oh, man. I don't know how many corners I can. I mean, I'll do it. I'll for sure do at least 30 because I've watched more than that. But if I can get to 50, that might be a stretch.
We'll be waiting. All right. I've got a mailbag tweet out here. Since we're in this time where we are lacking news, I figured we would let the audience kind of lead us where they want to be led. And I got a ton of responses. I used a bunch of them for a mailbag post that's up now at SteelersNow.com. I'll just kind of briefly sort of run down the ones that I touched on there because I think, we're missing something. Nick Camuso, the dear Nick Camuso, asked, who is going to fall to the Steelers at number 20? And I think that's an interesting question that we haven't really talked about. And it's interesting because I don't think it's anyone the Steelers are actually going to want to draft. And so instead of like rooting for people to fall, I think the Steelers are in a position where they're going to be rooting for people to not fall, right? Like the 5th and 6th quarterback, Bo Nix and Michael Penix, they're going to root for those guys to get taken in the top 20. There's 3 edges, I think, in a lot of people's top 20s. I know Laiatu Latu has big, bad medicals that it's going to scare some teams away. If they could get one of those 3 edges to fall beneath them at 20, I think that would be helpful. In terms of guys that Steelers might actually want falling, I think J.C. Latham is about the best guy I could hope for. He's probably going to the Bengals at 18 if he makes it there. But, I could see him maybe falling, but that's about the best I have to hope for in terms of that. What else did I have here? Oh, Corey Trice. I think we talked about him yesterday. Yeah. And center prospects, I feel like we've talked about. Oh, Malik Washington. Where'd you have him in your top 50? Virginia's Malik Washington. Steven Vodzik asked, do the Steelers have him on their board? They did see him at the Shrine Bowl. That's all the sort of interest they've shown. But I would imagine that a guy of that stature from an ACC school, they are certainly in line with. And then he also asked, how much do the Steelers and Mike Tomlin consider bloodlines when drafting? It seems like it's very important to them. It is. They actually really do believe that NFL bloodlines, or not just bloodlines, but a person that has up close and personally witnessed what the life of an NFL football player looks like, they believe will be less likely to just completely flake out under the pressure and bust and not be able to make the transition from college football to the NFL. And they really strongly believe that it's not like a cute thing that they want brothers and they want sons of NFL players. Like, they really think it matters. I put in my answer there that Devin Bush is the son of an NFL player and is one of the worst draft picks they made in the last 30 years. So I don't know how right they are, but they certainly feel strongly about it.
Malik Washington was wide receiver 22 for me, actually right after Tez Walker, where people were complaining about me having him too low. Actually had somebody say the same thing about Malik Washington. So the great thing is people can do their own rankings and you can have them higher. So there you go. In terms of the bloodline stuff, very interesting because there's a part of football that is not on the field, and like being kind of around the game and just knowing what it is like to be a pro as well as just like a football player, like learning that side of things in terms of coming into the NFL. I do think that's important. So that's very interesting.
And then Matt Hatchett, great question. Can the Steelers really gamble on waiting on center until the second or third day? I would rather take an offensive tackle in the first and a receiver in the second. This is an offensive league, and they need a wide receiver that make an instant impact, but center is a big hole now. I feel like we've talked about this a lot. And I think a lot of it has been, like, look, when we did our sort of dueling mock drafts, right? I mean, that was like the central part of it. It was like, how are you going to address the center position? And the more I think about it, and also the Hunter Norzad from Penn State coming in for that visit last week really makes me think that Omar Khan might be a little bit bolder than I think the rest of us are thinking he's going to be in terms of how long he might be willing to wait for center. I had a friend of mine ask me today, actually, what do I think an Omar Khan type player is in the NFL draft? And my answer to that was, I don't think there is a type player. I just think this, to me, the signature Omar Khan thing is that he gets value, right? He is going to find value at the pick or trade or move, to get the guy once. And, you're not going to get value if you're worried about not getting one. Like we both sort of admitted that you if you're going to make sure you get a guy, then you have to give up value to do it. You either have to take one in the first round or you have to trade up in the second. You have to do something a little bit silly to make sure you get a center. And the more I think about it, the more I think about Omar and the person that he is and his sort of obsession with value and his knowledge about value, I think they might wait. Like, I think we could be in like after pick 51, Steelers fans in full meltdown about there not being a center taken in either the first two picks because Omar's letting it ride and he's going to go with the positions that have more value. I can see it happening. Like, I think maybe more than I could even a week or two ago. I think they might wait on center.
Yeah, I like in both of ours, basically, it was like, hey, we're taking Zach Frazier like in the 30s, and we're not necessarily taking the best player that's on the board just because we feel like we have to take this player. In real life, there is zero chance of Omar Khan doing something like that. Like if they feel like that's not the best player to take in that position, I don't think that that's going to happen. Like, so that's a good point. And also take into consideration this. Continuously, like we've seen no other, not that the market is great anyways, free agent center market at this point in time, it's relatively dried up for anybody that's still out there, but like the names that we've talked about, they are still out there, the ones that we've mentioned, whether it's Brian Allen or
Cody Whitehair got signed the other day, but
Cody Whitehair,
Brian Allen's still out there. Gates is still out there.
Nick Gates, I know people don't want to hear the name Mason Cole again.
Mason Cole.
And then the other one to watch, maybe as we get deeper in this process here, maybe they're monitoring what's going on with Connor Williams.
Yeah.
And they draft a guy in the middle rounds and see what's going on there as we get closer to training camp. So, yeah.
I think the Hunter Norzad visit really, for me, like, I think that's a good I think he's a player that if he had been able to test and he tested well, would be talking about at the edge of day 2. I think he's a really good player. I think they might like him.
Perfect guy that you would pair with one of those free agent options that is other than Connor Williams, because he's obviously, an upper echelon center in the league, but the rest of those guys, that would be the perfect guy to pair with them.
And I think he could play right away. Like, he doesn't have the upside of Frazier and the other thing is if you draft Norzad in the 4th round, let's say, or maybe like they trade back from the 4th into the 5th, they could still get him. I think that's possible, right? Let's say they do that. and you draft him and you start him this year, like you could still go get another center in the future if you don't feel like he's the guy. Like you can just fill a hole with him, just like you'd be filling a hole with Brian Allen. Like I think it
not a lot
works.
of resources dumped into him. Yeah.
Right. And he could be a very nice interior swing backup, like that you could play. And look, if he's starting a year, I'm dating myself, but like when I grew up, like Justin Strelzik played all over the Steelers offensive line. He started a lot, but like early on in his career, he was just kind of the guy that was there. And it's like, yeah, he'll probably play somewhere. We'll figure it out. I think Norsad's played all 5 positions in college. He can do it. And, is he a tackle at the NFL level? Probably not, but I think he can play center in both guards. And I think he could really be, if you want to pick up a more recent, like how about like a Chris Hubbard, right? Like just a guy you have around, and like if somebody gets hurt and he's your starter, nobody's super upset about it. If he's your starter going into the season, nobody's necessarily like jumping for joy, but they're not panicking about it either. And I think Norzad isn't the only guy like that. Now, maybe Tanner Bortolini doesn't have the positional flexibility. He did play right tackle also. But Bo Limmer, like there are guys down there that they can draft. I don't know. The more I think about it, the more I think waiting on center is something they might actually be entertaining.
Yeah, I would say I almost feel like the only spot that we would I don't think it's gonna happen in the first round. I'll say that. But like 51 is possible. We're trading up in the second round. But like those third round picks, right? Like I don't think that's gonna happen either. Like 84, 98.
Maybe it's like Van Pran gets the 98.
I guess so. I feel like it's equally as unlikely there as it is in the first round. I almost feel like it is in the second round or it's later, like we're talking about right now.
Yeah, I think Van Pran is the one guy in between. The other, it's very interesting, man. I really don't know what they're going to do at center, but I just get the sense that they are not going to be afraid. I think they're going to get value. I think that's Omar's signature. I think he's going to get value, and I don't see the value being reaching for a center because you don't have one.
Yeah, I agree. Do you have anything else on that?
No, those are the ones I did answer on the website. There's a whole bunch here that I did not answer. Maybe I'll throw some to you.
Okay.
Let's see what you think. There's a Xavier Leggett. What's the best value option for them in the first round to be able to secure other positions of need down the board? I think we answered that yesterday, that we feel like it's probably tackle is the best value proposition.
Let me add, you said it was Nick, right, that asked you about like what's the best possible slide or something like that.
Yeah.
Who's the one? Like, and I don't think that this is necessarily realistic, but I've seen it thrown out there, right? Like Ulu Fashanu, if for whatever reason didn't get taken, like how do you not take him?
You just run to the podium, you knock down people on the way there, or you look and you say, if Fashanu's there, then is Troy Fautanu there? Is JC Latham? Like, did he fall or did all the tackles fall? Because if he fell, okay, then maybe you look around and you're like, what's everybody else? Why? But I still think I don't know, like him and Amarius Mims have pretty similar upside, but he's obviously a lot more of a sure thing. Like, I think you just go take him. But if all the tackles fall, let's say that like Alton and somebody takes Fuaga ahead of Fashanu, but only 2 tackles have been taken. In fact, there was an NFL.com mock. Chad Reuters' 7-round mock had this scenario where there's 2 tackles taken before the Steelers pick at 20. Then it's just like, please trade back. Anybody let me trade back, because they do have all the, we've been talking a lot about how they have more needs than they have picks. And that is just a dream trade back scenario. So, but like, I would not hesitate to draft Olu Fashanu. I think he's a really good player. Probably not like the world's best scheme fit for the Steelers in terms of, like he's more of a pass blocker than a run blocker.
Oh, that, by the way, that would keep Broderick on the right.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about that. I don't care about that. The one thing that's good though is that Penn State runs a ton of wide zone. So, or at least they did last year. They have no offense this year, but he basically has been in the Arthur Smith offense. And so it would be a really nice, easy transition. Yeah, that's the move that puts Dan Moore on the bench day one, by the way. If you want that to happen, like that's the easiest way to see it happening.
Yep, I agree. Anything else on there?
Yeah, let's see. I'll take one here. Well, there's a trade down question I just kind of answered. Ross Nickel wants to know what love is.
I'm about to go to SmackDown with him. I think he's still going to be searching for answers for a while. I don't know that you have. I mean, you are a married man. Maybe
if you're going to ask me a question about an old song, I want to know what love is of course, an 80s rock song, hair metal-y. I'll answer with my own rock or my own song. What's love got to do with it? I'll just throw it right back. I'll answer a question with a question, Ross. Feel free to continue this banter wherever. Kevin Stifler wants to know who's the UDFA quarterback the Steelers signed to be the fourth arm in camp. Ooh. Carter Bradley, Mitch Davidson, Talia Tagovailoa. I really think you may have two answers there. Carter Bradley, the Steelers sent Tom Arthey, the quarterback's coach, to South Alabama's Pro Day. And so I think that's, and Talia Tagovailoa, obviously at Maryland, some familiarity with Mike Tomlin. We just talked about the NFL bloodlines they like. I think those are two very good options. We discussed it is not a very good UDFA quarterback class. Austin Reed from Western Kentucky is the other guy that I think is kind of interesting. He started out as a Division II guy down in Florida and kind of worked his way up, played in a bit of a weird offense. Maybe there's more than what we've seen there, but it is not a particularly interesting UDFA quarterback group.
No, that's like, I know that there's a lot of conversation for that for a fourth quarterback, but like I've mentioned, I just think I could see it just as easily being somebody that's already been around.
Felipe Franks needs to be the fourth quarterback so that I can get one of my four from my prediction earlier this offseason correct. I don't remember who your fourth was.
Trace McSorley.
Oh, there you go. Okay, we're still in the hunt for 25%.
Yeah.
Matt D wants to know, do the Steelers end draft night with the same amount of picks they start with?
Ooh. I'm going to say no.
So they have 7 now, correct? Yeah. They do not have a fourth. They do not have, I'm sorry, they do not have a fifth. They do not have a seventh, but they have 2/3 and 2/6. You think they do or they don't?
I'm saying no.
More or less?
They're going to have more.
More. So you think they trade down somewhere and add a pick? Yeah. I think they will still have the same number of picks. I think if they I think
you think they trade up one time, also trade down another.
Yeah.
Negating. Yeah.
I think they'll have the same number of picks. If they trade down, I think it will be because they traded down to trade up, or they'll trade down and up in the same.
That's like last year, they traded up for Broderick, but then traded down and ended up drafting Darnell at 93 and recouped the fourth.
So they got their fourth back, right? Like I could see something like that happening. I think fewer is the least likely of the three options.
Yeah. I mean, I hope so.
Right? I mean, I don't see how. Yeah. I just did. Somebody asked me, and we can talk about this. Somebody asked me, what would it take for the Steelers to trade up and get Joe Alt, who is the top tackle in the class? We've been talking about tackle a lot. Reasonable question, if sort of an unreasonable premise, right? Like, I mean, I don't think it's going to happen, but it's an interesting thought process. So I put it in the Rich Hill trade value chart, and then I put that trade in the PFF simulator, and it worked. So I guess it's feasible that I traded 20, 51, 84, and 98 for pick 5 and with the Los Angeles Chargers. And I also got their 6th and 7th round comp picks back. And so that was still like, I still needed, I felt like even in that trade, I had to get, I could only lose one draft pick. Like that was the most, like, even though trading away like 1, 2, and both 3s, like I needed to get that 6th and 7th back, or just the draft doesn't work. Like even losing one pick, I got a tackle, a wide receiver, a center, a D tackle, a linebacker, and a corner. Joe Alt, Anais Smith, Bo Limmer, Logan Lee, Michael Barrett, and AJ Woods. If you must know, I actually think I kind of did pretty well with the rest of the draft, considering I traded away the whole top. But it's really, really hard to get everything you need when you only have exactly the right number of picks. Like, you're gonna have to miss some places. And so I would say definitely not many.
Interesting though, no future picks at least. So like 2025, you got to
Yeah, I
go all
didn't.
clean
I
slate.
felt like that was cheating, right? Like I felt like the question was like, what's it actually gonna? I mean, you could probably substitute like the second, and maybe like it would probably be like a 2025 first, one of the thirds, and like a fourth or a sixth, like something like that would probably be about the same. I don't know. Interesting thought process. What else we got here? Mims or Barton? Who's the pick at number 20?
Man,
this feels like the
let me see if I got
existential question of the first round of this draft, doesn't it? Like this is the center question is sort of the existential question about the entire draft. This is the first round question, I think, in terms of like, I think it's very likely that both these players will be there. I think both players would be very good players for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They would fill positions of need. They would be, if not day one, early in their rookie season starters. This is the question, right? This is the question. So I'll leave it to you.
I mean, less than a week out, if you're asking me for two names, it's these two names. So I think they did a great job pitting these two names as the in the conversation here. I mean, I don't want to go away from what I've been saying for a month at least. So I'm sticking with Mims. As much as I believe
answer it two ways. What do you think the Steelers are going to do? What would you do?
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I would go with Mims for sure. It might not be as chalk for them if that was the decision to make at 20 for those two, but I would go with Mims for both.
I would definitely take Mims. And I think the Steelers would take Mims. I also think trade back is a possibility. But I think Barton.
I mean, that to me is what I want to happen.
I think Barton is going at 21 if the Steelers don't take him at 20. The Dolphins really need a guard. He can definitely be a guard. But the Eagles are 2 picks back. The Eagles are going to want a corner. So if they really like Cooper DeJean or Nate Wiggins and they have a preference, I could see them coming up. If Terry and Arnold falls, I could absolutely see them coming up. Not that I see that happening, but Arnold or Mitchell, if one of those guys is there, I could really. I mean, then the Eagles they would probably get even ahead of the Steelers if one of those guys gets even that close. But I think that's, to me, that feels like if I was putting like pie chart, okay, like what do you think that like I've got like 30% on each of those guys roughly. Like maybe a little bit, maybe like 35% on Mims, 30 on Barton, and the field with the other 25%. Like, does that feel about right to you?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, it might. I don't even know if there's a 5% difference for me between Mims and Barton, but like for the sake of making it about as even as possible in a pie chart, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think you're about 35% Mims, about 30% Barton, about 25% everybody else.
Okay. Wait, doesn't that equal 90?
I was never very good at math.
10% on trade. 10% on trade.
10% trade back. 10% trade back.
Okay, there we go.
And I think that look, I think trading back is attractive, but it's not always very realistic.
I mean, that's what I was saying is it takes 2 to tango. Like, why specifically would it be 20 someone was trying to get to as opposed to 19 or any spot in front of?
Yeah, I guess we didn't talk about that part of the falling thing. Is like, even okay, so like let's say Nix or Penix is on the board at 20, and let's say the Vikings haven't drafted a quarterback yet. They're still sitting there at 23. Well, someone might really want to get ahead of the Vikings, to get that quarterback. And so then I could see like trade up starts. One of those corners is there for the Eagles, and they really want one. Some of the other teams are going to be coming up for tackles. Like, if do you want to do that? Do you want to trade down to somebody that is coming up for the position you want to draft? Most of the time, you don't.
Right. Yeah, I'm very less than a week to see how it's all actually going to play out. These hypotheticals have been fun, but less than a week and we'll actually know.
Keep the comments coming here on YouTube. I didn't even get to the YouTube. There were a couple on YouTube as well. And I think what we're going to do for the, like, somebody's saying live stream during the draft. We can't do a live stream during the draft. I am covering the draft, so I will not be available. And I'm going to recommend that you all go check out Smitty's live stream on Around the 412. And so,
well, actually, Alan, the thing is, I have the ability, if we want to do this, I can also stream it to this YouTube channel at the same time.
Okay. Well, if the people want that and you're willing, that's fine with me. And then I think Nick and I will probably do something after we get our work done on the South Side, and whether that's me and Nick or whether that's one of us with you or whatever, but it'll be at the end of the night after. So what's going to happen is the Steelers are going to make their pick at 20. Someone will come out and speak. We'll get the pick on the phone, and then we'll have to wait until the first round ends, because even if the Steelers make the pick at 20, there's always a chance they could come back up into the end of the end of the first round, as unlikely as it is, or they could be a part of another trade in some other way, where we would have to be involved. And so, but at the end of the first round, I'll be free. So I don't know, maybe we'll do something there at the end of the night. And then, but so I think the thing that's still TBD is what we do with our show on Thursday afternoon. Do we want to have one? And if we do we want it? I had people ask about live. So I think maybe that's what we'll try to do. I don't know. We'll still figure it out, but yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let us know if you guys would like me to stream our Around the 412 draft show also directly over here. Let us know in the comments. I think that'd be a lot of fun to have, my worlds colliding and two audiences being brought to one. So let us know if that's something to be interested in. Till then, till next week, Alan, tell the people they can find you.
Saunders_PGH, PGH Steelers Now, SteelersNow.com. Lots of good stuff up on the website. That's it, man.
There we go. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell here. Hit us in the comments, as we've said, I think 3 times now within the last minute or so. Leave us a 5-star review and subscribe if you're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever your podcast from. You can find us over there. I'm Zachary Smith, PGH. For Alan Saunders and myself, thanks for jumping in. Take another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.